Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sword and Tea, a Sword and Key production where we sit down with wonderful folks in the TTRPG community, whether they be creators of any kind, game designers, game creators, artists, musicians, a variety of amazing people have graced us with their presence here. And I'm joined today by the very wonderful Julie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure, longtime fan, first time appearance. Glad to
Uh,
be here.
Mutual. Not first time appearance, but mutual for the first part.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking some time to sit and talk with us. We are going to be talking about Tactics Memoriam, a game that you have designed that is currently live on Kickstarter. And it has a decent amount of days left. What is it, 20 something days?
We have till the end of the
Um,
month, so by
the
my
end of the month.
math, we have
Okay.
23 more days to
23
hit the
days to
goal.
go. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you are incredibly close to that goal. Fingers crossed we can do that the next hour-ish. So, Tactics Memoriam is a great game. We're going to talk about that a lot and why you should be backing it on Kickstarter. But even though you have 23 days to go, don't wait the 23 days. Do it now while you're thinking about it, and we'll talk about why that's important. Before all of that, I do want to say that this is a Sword and Key production. You can find all of Sword and Key stuff at beacons.ai/Sword and Key. You can find all of our links. We have our socials right up at the top. That's Blue Sky and Instagram, as well as our Discord. I highly recommend checking out those because we have a game application open right now for a game of Monster Hearts 2. So if you've ever want to play on a stream on this channel, in a stream on this channel, especially play Monster Hearts 2, if that Venn diagram happens to be a solid circle for you, throw your hat in that ring. There is less than a week left to apply on that. So again, don't wait. Do it while you're thinking about it. You can find that link on Beacons as well as socials and of course Discord as well. Also on Beacons, you can find links to our charitable organizations. There's a number of evergreen ones that we support throughout the year, like Palestine Children's Relief Fund and Canaan Campaigns for Independence. There's also some Pallies if you wanted to tip some of our cast and crew for some of our independent games. You can also on Beacons find links to our affiliates. We have a number of great affiliates like Eldritch Foundry, who make custom minis, as well as Long Dog Dice, who make incredible dice sets. Jen from Long Dog Dice has been wonderful enough to make official Sword and Key dice with the logo on the D6. These are from our Horizons Call game. Beautiful shade of blue. You can pre-order a set for yourself. The neat thing is I only have to say this discount code once because it counts for both Eldritch Foundry and Long Dog Dice, and that is code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase with either of those wonderful companies. We are also affiliates with Hit Point Press. They have been wonderful enough to give us an affiliate link. So if you're going to be purchasing from them, they make, Humblewood, Islands of Cena Una, tons and tons of stuff. You know who they are. Use their affiliate link if you're going to be shopping from them. More stuff of Sword and Key once we hit the end of this stream. But in the meantime, I want to talk about Tactics Memoriam and also about you and the journey that you've had with TTRPGs. So, um, I guess this is the thing I like to ask most people who join us, almost all people, since I've kind of gotten better at this. Where did you start with TTRPGs? What was your first TTRPG, and how did you first start getting into game design and game creation?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to have had a friend from acting school invite me to join a podcast in about 2017. And we did maybe a dozen episodes, and like a lot of people, started with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition a little bit before Critical Role was as in vogue as it all was, so the scene was
Sure.
just a little bit smaller. But I really enjoyed being a player in this, and I thought I want to do this all the time. I think I have to teach myself how to run games because it was quite hard to find a game master among my friends at the time. So started to run games in person, started to run games online. During 2020, everything really kicked off because we had a few months there of just being inside, started to get involved with the space a little bit more, and it just fell at a really great intersection between all of my different areas of interest, your epic fantasy stories, your video game min-maxing. I have an acting background as well, and I could let out some of the energy bubbling inside me into this as a performance outlet. So everything just lined up, and I was eventually brought on to different channels to play different systems on Roll D5, which I help co-run, very much help co-run because it really is on to win Mika, Sylvia, Justin who tackle like the bulk of it all. But that is a system, a channel all about trying out indie systems. So that really expanded my
Absolutely.
worlds, and now here we are making one of our own.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Like I said, I mean, starting with D&D, a lot of us do.
Yeah,
But I think the work that Roll D5 does to promote the independent games is really incredible, and I love seeing all the work over there. It's an absolutely incredible team. Um, I also really appreciate that you firmly fit into the theater kid to TTRPG pipeline.
yes,
That is,
indeed.
yes, a lot of us are there as well. You're not alone. I'm sure you know
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Okay, so uh, I I'm not sure about the answer to this, so I apologize. Is Tactics Memoriam the first game that you have designed?
Sort of.
Okay,
I The first time I ever ran a game, period, was a build on Dungeons and Dragons where I modified it to make it more in line with Nintendo strategy RPG series Fire Emblem. So
sure.
I kind of was creating my own custom classes for D&D from the start, and I didn't really know what I was doing. Everything was like a little bit cumbersome, and it was more just like a D&D reflavoring with a few different mechanics. Um, but as far as creating something from the ground up of this size, yes, this is the first one.
Okay. And it absolutely is an endeavor, I'm sure. It appears like a lot of work very clearly went into making Tactics Memoriam. Um, I should say that through the Kickstarter, you can actually get a beta test version of Tactics Memoriam now that you can donate, or sorry, you can donate, you can pay what you want, is what I want to say for it. You should pay
Indeed.
something, that's, yeah, you can get it for free. I mean, it's a couple bucks too.
If you have money, I'd rather it go towards the Kickstarter. That's the
But
philosophy
that
that I've
are
been
also
approaching the
fair.
month with.
Also fair. But you can get a beta test of Tactics Memoriam. You can download
Mhm.
a copy of that. So I highly recommend doing that. So that's what I'll be basing a lot of my questions off today. And I appreciate you making that available. Okay, so Tactics Memoriam being the first like deep end jump of TTRPG writing for you. What kind of inspired you to kind of delve away? You said you kind of started with modifying D&D, which I think a lot of us do that. I think a lot of people when they first come to D&D
Yeah.
go, well, it's not exactly what I want. Okay, what homebrew could I pull into this? And then I made the mistake personally of getting way too much
Hmm.
homebrew way too early, and kind of ruined my first character. I will always live with that shame. But where did you decide to kind of make your own thing, and what was the big inspiration to delve away from anything that had been made before?
Yeah, so I started from the mechanics. I had a friend on I was on their channel a little while ago and they asked me, why did you go for creating something new instead of creating like a reskin or a build for another TTRPG? And it's because I started with the mechanics. I thought, how do I translate this type of game that I like so much into a tabletop game format? And the literal mechanics of a video game that I want to encapsulate here is the type of isometric strategy game with simple enough gameplay for you to control multiple characters. I feel like in games like D&D, even in newer games like Daggerheart, your character has 8 different abilities and you're trying to remember, and oh, I forgot to use this one and it could have completely changed the course of the combat. This game is supposed to be simple enough that you can control multiple units, even if you're playing by yourself or at a table with multiple people. All of it works because your units are supposed to be working in concert with one another, doing simple things to achieve a larger goal rather than playing a superhero. That was very much part of the tagline of the game, that, you're not this epic, god crushing hero who's going to change everything by yourself. You're a person who picked up a spear, and you need other people with you. So that's where the story and the mechanics marry. Mechanically, I wanted to create a system where it was easy to control multiple units, even in a strategic setting, and then the story kind of came out of that.
Okay. seeing the Fire Emblem tie-ins a little
Yes.
bit there. Yeah, no,
Yes.
strategy games are great. I particularly love them, and we'll probably talk more about this. Um, I was in chess club when I was in elementary school. Big
Ah.
fan of chess. So seeing that being incorporated, we can talk more about that when we get to mechanics. But before that, Tactics Memoriam, for people that might just be seeing cover art, for people that might just be seeing the name in passing, what is your elevator pitch for Tactics Memoriam? What are folks looking when they get into this for the first time?
Absolutely. The log line, like the thing that I have for the pitch meeting, is literally Hades meets Fire Emblem. It's your uh, colorful, quirky afterlife aesthetic with a strategy aspect to it. But what I say to people outside of this hypothetical investors room is that it is a strategic TTRPG about changing the shape of the afterlife with your blade, playable with just dice and a chessboard. Going back to chess, it was important for me that this game would be accessible, and sometimes TTRPGs ask people to spend a lot of money even just to play them, especially the strategy ones that you have to pay so much money for figures and enormous Warhammer battlefields. And
Oh
I
yeah.
thought, let's just shrink it. Let's make it so that everything is playable on a chessboard. Everyone's movement is a little bit smaller than it would be on other TTRPGs. We're not going to worry about elevation. If you're a strategy nerd, like the two people you see on screen are, we
Yes.
have a chess set or two in our house already. So then you just get the book for free, pull up your dice, and you can get started. And that's it.
I love that. I am also a really big fan of games like Tactics Morim, which take the you already have the stuff. You already own the thing. Whether it's a modification of, I've seen games that will adapt things into, the household board games, Battleship, or, I've even seen one for Candyland. How can we, yeah, how can we adapt a thing that you probably already have in your home, but make it something different? You don't have to buy a whole new battle map or anything else like that. So I think that's really great. Okay, so that's great. Hades meets Fire Emblem, I think, is very indicative. When we're delving a little bit more into the theme of Tactics more, and we've talked a little bit about like the afterlife and battling potentially through that and the strategy of that. What are we looking at with story, like the setting of Tactics Memoriam?
The setting is a warrior's purgatory. The characters in this world did not make it to Valhalla or paradise or wherever they wanted to end up, whether it was due to some type of societal setback or some personal failing, they ended up here instead. And there's a few reasons that this is helpful for a swords and sorcery type of strategy game. Very helpful for me as a designer in that the level of violence is flexible. If you've played games like Fire Emblem, you've seen maps where you're throwing your characters who are leaping in the air and stabbing their friends with swords, and then afterwards they're like, "What a great practice battle!" And it's like, I don't know if this diegetically lines up at all. But in an afterlife setting where people are theoretically melancholic, immortal wanderers traveling through this place forever, you could take a sword through the chest and walk it off, so long as the fiction calls for it. So that setting helps inform not just the level of violence from a justifiable standpoint if two friends decide to duel each other, but also so that you can kind of adjust it for your table. You can treat this as Doom, where there's like blood spraying everywhere, or you can treat it
Right.
as something like Hades, where you die and then you emerge from your pool of blood and you're like, "Ah, rats, better try again." It's up to the table.
I really like that. I love that it has almost a hinted towards roguelike element, but can be played in a variety of ways. That's very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, what were any inspirations for the setting for making a game about this warrior's purgatory? Are there any points of like pop culture that maybe inspired you, or is this something that you've had in the back of your head for a long time?
It's the latter. Especially as a queer person who spent a lot of time thinking about death during 2020, as many of us were, just kind of had this idea for like a fantasy world where people wake up and their body is honest with the shape of their soul. And, they might wake up with the head of a lion, or they might wake up and change their gender day to day, depending on how they're feeling. And I started to write a fantasy novel. I got 60 pages into it, and then I kind of hit a writer's block. Um, and it is something I want to revisit someday. It was a little bit more modern, like there were cities, but for now, that basic idea kind of ended up being skinned on top of the mechanics for how would I translate a multi-unit isometric strategy game into a tabletop format. We put the immortal afterlife setting on top of that, and boom, you have a world where the level of violence is flexible, the amount of battles can go on forever, and it just lined up. It just sang together.
That's really cool. Yeah. So you have this immortal kind of purgatorial battle realm of sorts. That's a great setting already. I love that the soul is not bound to the confines of whatever meat shell it had in its mortal life, and can shape to what the person truly feels. I think that's really cool, and I think a lot of people, much like you mentioned at the time when you're writing this, were also having that existential thought of who am I should get into sourdough. Like that was I appreciate the efforts towards novel writing in the TTRPG, because we all had our weird hobbies. Yours
Oh yeah.
seems to be paying off. Our sourdough starter died a long time ago.
Oh no.
Um, it's fine. So for Tactics Memoriam, when you have these characters, because it sounds like you don't just have a single hero that you are utilizing, or perhaps even a team of them, or almost a small force of them. What is the ultimate goal that we're looking at for Tactics Memoriam? Is there a set story that you have built into this, or is the structure placed for a GM?
There are aspects of leveling up and deciding what your campaign is about within the book itself. As soon as you open the book, you are asked to create a hero and an antagonist. And your hero has some reason that they are here. And if you don't want to come up with your own character right off the bat, you can roll for it. There's a table that says, maybe your hero is here to find somebody, a little Orpheus and Eurydice. And not only does this inform the start of the story, but there is also a link to mechanics here. For this character, when you encounter your antagonist, who is another character that you build, you roll a die, and then your antagonist tells you whether your lover is alive or dead, and then you see how that takes you further in the story. You could also roll on the table and say you were dipped in the equivalent of the river Styx, like some river of souls, and you were given a body that cannot perish in combat, which is another important part of the design of the game. That you should probably have one character who will not consign themselves to oblivion, who will not die permanently, given that the game can feel a little bit lethal sometimes, just so you can follow one character's story pretty well. Sometimes this immortality is a curse, like with this one, where it's like, yeah, you were dipped in the river of souls. All of these infinite souls inside of you are keeping you alive, but you can also hear them while you sleep. So you roll for your hero, you create an antagonist as well, who might be a hulking force who cannot be taken down by conventional means, or they could be an angel who is looking to wipe purgatory clean. And you start there. You start with your hero and your antagonist. You roll for a few themes of story if your GM doesn't want to decide them. And that's where we're at for the beta version. For the final version of the game, defeating your antagonist is the halfway point. The last half of your campaign, or maybe the last third of your campaign, depending on how you place it, still more playtesting needs to be done, involves you taking down one of the 8 tyrants of the afterlife, the people whose physical bodies hold the oppression of this place together. That ties into the theme of changing the shape of the afterlife with your blade. It's not just a poetic thing, it's also, you are here to make eternity livable. There is a tie to, you know, us as people in the real world navigating a complex reality that I'm sure will manifest in your tables here. That's a long-winded explanation as to how the
No, it's
game
a great
works when you first
explanation.
open the book.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great explanation. Because it definitely the thing I love about great books like this is that they immediately inspire. They immediately inspire ideas of how to run games like this. When you talk about having eight tyrants, it absolutely does feel like when you were talking the Nintendo strategy games. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it's not just endless fighting. Yes, you're in this purgatorial, nether space of endless war and battle, but you're gonna die, you're gonna come back, you're gonna die, you're gonna come back, but there is an ultimate goal.
Mhm.
That it's very Dante's Inferno, the video game, which wasn't great, but still did have that kind of concept of delving downwards to ultimately make your way out, and much like you were saying with the Orpheus Eurydice thing, having that the two-pronged goal of not only do we need to rescue or rectify some sort of plot, we need to then also save ourselves, because otherwise the first one doesn't matter. That the two are unified. You can't really do one or the other.
Right.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the book as well, and I think this is probably a good enough time because I've come across one of a great piece of art. Who did the art for this?
A smattering of people.
Okay.
So the cover art, this person holding a skull,
Hmm.
was Fabian Lillet, or Rockets and Pens of Bad House RPG. Um, another Northeasterner who I've hung out with once or twice in person. He's absolutely brilliant. I told him I want to design an androgynous warrior holding a skull with a sword somewhere in the picture. And then
Hmm.
he decided to immerse them in liquid, and the sword is floating in front of them. And I'm like, that is absolutely brilliant. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, with the
Um,
rose motif and everything, it's really good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's death and it's beauty, and I asked him, I want people to not be sure who the skull the warrior on the cover is holding belongs to, whether it is someone they loved or someone they killed, or whether it represents a facet of themselves that they
Yeah.
are like putting to rest in the liquid around them. I wanted it to be vague, and he really took that and ran with it. Um, but just to show how things are such a joint effort, the lettering, which I love, almost seems to drip down them as well, was done by Daniel Mastretta, another friend of mine and Sylvia's who helps run Roll D5, and he did a lot of the individual sketches within the book because he was the layout designer. Danielle is a huge strategy game nerd and a professional graphic designer and teacher of graphic design. And he said, "Hey, I have dozens of images just in my iPad from doodling while playing games or watching movies. Until we have the full book funded, can I just like throw a few of these black and white sketches in there?" And I said, "I'm blessed to have you. I'm so lucky to have you working with me on this." So he did the formatting, um, and the other two artists whose work shows up here are Angie slash Agonthetic of Tales Archived and Button slash Blue Blue Button of Tales Archived. Angie drew the warrior with the sword on the Your Hero page, the spread on
Yeah.
page 14 and 15. And then Button drew the character on page 29, the person holding the staff. Um, and, you know, many more illustrations from them and others once we hit the Kickstarter goal. That's the plan.
It's all incredible. I do love the variety of it. Even the antagonist art is also very cool. I love the shift in the reverse of white and black on it, the inverse art style on it.
Mhm.
The hero artwork is what I had kind of come across first after the cover art, and I love
Mhm.
that because it is very. It reminds me a lot of the antagonist from the Highlander movies, the Kurgan. Very
Mm.
similar, kind of like helmet style and everything there. So I hope that maybe I'm picking up on a reference there, but it's all very good, and I think really does tie in the thematics of the story as well, because there is absolutely something to say for having singular artists when it comes to cohesion of story, but
Mhm.
I think one of the beautiful things about Tactics Memoriam is realizing that heroes in this space present differently, that every soul is unique. And so the artistic depictions of these heroes, of these various entities, is going to vary in style as well. And whether intentional or not, I think it's a really easy and beautiful way to illustrate that for people that
Yeah.
might be scrolling through. Uh,
Tonally,
yeah,
if I can just extrapolate on
please.
the directive I gave for Angie for this one, um, there's some possible Kurgan inspiration there. I don't know Angie's exact frame of reference, but what I told them uh, was that I actually gave them a choice of classes to draw. I gave them a few different um, ideas for some of the promoted classes in the game, and I wanted one brandishing a weapon specifically, and I said, can you choose one of these three between like Sky King and Dark Knight and another one? And Angie chose the Dark Knight, and I was like, all right, cool. So for a Dark Knight character in the afterlife, I don't think we're just gonna stick them in a suit of armor. I think there's got to be something a little bit more underworldy feeling about it. And I have in the description of the Dark Knight class that they are wearing armor of bones and scraps, because this is not the afterlife of the coolest heroes ever. This is the people who are like scraping themselves together every single day to keep going.
Yeah.
And then, even though that was originally conceived as class artwork, I think it fits really interestingly as the first big image that hits you as soon as you open the book, because it is so striking and evocative. And I have to give full credit to Angie for taking the prompt and going all the way with it.
I fully agree. It is very, very evocative. We've kind of talked a little bit about, the type of characters, the gameplay. To get into specific details about how to play Tactics Memoriam. So we have the general setting of these like undying lands, or lands of the dead, perhaps being more accurate. Souls presenting in a variety of ways. You have heroes, a level of immortality to them. They're looking for perhaps a way out, or a way through, or a way to make their existence somewhat more palatable. When it comes to mechanic gameplay, we've talked about how there's dice and a chess set. What kind of dice are people going to need to play this game?
Yeah, it is mostly going to be D10s. Those are the
Okay.
only ones you're going to use in battle. And the reason for that is because I had originally conceived of this as a Fire Emblem inspired system where you would be rolling D100s to attack, and then
Hmm.
critical hits would happen on any double digit number where the numbers are the same, like your 11s, your 22s, your 33s, etc. And then it didn't end up lining up that way, but I kept the D10s for some other reasons that we can talk about later with gameplay. D10s are going to be the only thing you roll in combat, but there are a lot of random tables in the book, like roll for what random weapon you get, roll for what random item you get. Let's roll for like the traits of the character that appears to you. And it didn't really make sense to have a table of 100 possibilities when there's only 20 or so weapons in the game. So there's a few random tables in the book where, it's there's 60 outcomes and you're going to roll a d6 for the tens place and a d10 for the ones place. So the short answer is you're only using d10s in combat. You're going to use other dice for the random tables in the book. That's it.
Perfect. Okay. So as far as the chess set aspect goes, are we utilizing all of the pieces from the chess set? Only some of them? The board as well, I know was mentioned. What will we need for that?
Yeah, so I wanted to keep it super simple. It's going to be a little bit topsy-turvy for people like you who have a good amount of chess experience, and that the chess pieces are not going to move like chess pieces.
Hmm.
Rather, the game was conceived to use chess pieces to represent different types of classes in the game. You're usually going to assign a king or a queen, for example, as the boss of the stage. And the book encourages you not to have more than 4 different types of enemy, so that you can use basically a piece to represent every different type of enemy. Um,
Yeah.
on pages 12 and 13, there's a section for using the chessboard, and it gives a few examples of how you might represent different types of enemy classes with chess pieces.
Hmm.
The first example, let's say, is a necromancer mage and his phantom soldiers. You know, you can have the four phantom soldiers represented by pawns. They're all going to have like the same stat sheet. You don't have to worry too much about distinguishing them, but the visual language of seeing them as pawns means you know what they are. You're gonna have their leader, the necromancer mage, as a king, and then you're gonna have their attendant being a bishop, showing that they're kind of like tending to the commander in that way. And that's an encounter. So there isn't a hard rule for how to use it, but I wanted to prompt the people using the board with ways for it to be an easy visual shorthand for understanding the game and what enemies you're facing. Especially because different unit types have different weaknesses, it's good to know that you can look at an enemy and be like, oh, it's this type of enemy, they're weak to this, I'm going to attack them with this. And I tried to make it very clear, the guidelines with how to use a chess set to do so without getting too into the weeds of it all.
I think it's great. I was trying to think of why chess and not
Mhm.
checkers or hell even Monopoly. But when you structure out the way that pieces kind of operate as these archetypes or these
Mhm.
representations of battle groups, it makes a lot more sense. And it almost seems like it has the aftertaste of a war game, but like you said, you don't need to buy the $150, battle mech or get these massive tables. Having this one structured physical battle map in front of you that's already laid out, you already have the pieces there. I think it really streamlines things. I think that's really great.
That's the
Um,
idea. I want it to be easy.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something when you're talking about the tables you provided as well. This seems like a game that folks could jump into relatively quickly. Is that an
Mhm.
accurate thing to say?
It is. I wouldn't describe it as a full print and play because
Hmm.
you're printing 60 or 120 pages, depending on whether you're doing the two-page or the one-page spread.
Yeah.
But I do want you to be able to look in the book, and once you have an understanding of how things work, create a character within like 2 minutes. It's supposed to be very quick. It's supposed to be very easy. And as somebody who's GM'd so many games over the years, I wanted to design this game for the game master as well. I didn't want them to feel like the beleaguered person who has to know all the rules, and arbitrate everything. I wanted them to, be a bit of a guide, but also have the ability to let the book do the work for them. And that's also why this game can entirely be played solo. You can literally roll for what enemies you're going to face, what the objective of your map is going to be, and like treat it as a solo journaling game where you write the outcomes, who lived, who died, who had a really cool moment, and then just go through a full adventure by yourself, which is how I was playtesting, basically.
That's really cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the players' characters.
Mhm.
So it sounds like there's a primary protagonist that that's at least one immortal one, perhaps more than that.
Yep.
So kind of like orbiting around that central character. And again, can see the parallels to a strategy RPG that you would have that central character. I'm thinking even like JRPGs where you have something
Mhm.
like Golden Sun and you have the main protagonist and the others kind of orbit. Um, when it comes to creating a character, what are we looking for with that? I know you talked about different classes.
Mhm.
What are some of the options that folks can look for?
Yeah, so creating a character is supposed to be very quick. It's supposed to be very simple. On the on the itch.io link for downloading the game, there's even a character sheet template that you can literally just create a copy of and fill out as you make your characters on the fly. Um, Basically, you roll for three different character traits of them, just aspects of their personality or goals. You assign them a class, of which the beta version has 8, though the final game will probably have closer to 20 base classes and their branching ascended classes. They're going to have their class skill. You're going to roll for their personal skill. You're going to give them your choice of items, and then they're good to go. Truly, the process takes a matter of minutes once you know what you're doing, because this is supposed to mimic your JRPGs where, sometimes you recruit a character on the fly. You finish a map and you recruit a unit because maybe they were a villager who was inspired by you after having seen you protect them. And then, boom, you roll for them and you have a warrior who uses hammers, who's afraid of ghosts. It's supposed to go really quick and easy in that way.
That's really cool. I love the generation idea of it as well. It isn't
Mhm.
like necessarily a set character. It is something where, yes, you will have, a person, a trait, and then what they do. That's really
Mhm.
cool. I think towards the end here, let's go ahead and do some character creation.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm gonna be scrolling through some options here while I'm asking some other things. But when it comes to the character then operating the world, they are collecting allies. I see that there are options for downtime actions.
Mhm.
So when they're outside of combat, they can be finding friends. They can be parting ways even from those friends. What are some of the, because I know combat's a really big part of this. What are some of the RP aspects that are kind of built into this game?
Yeah, so I wanted to have a structured, mechanized downtime system outside of combat because I feel like freeform roleplay with random skill checks whenever you want to do something is so much work on the GM. As
Sure.
somebody who's run a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, so you can let roleplay take as long as you want, but if you're not in combat and tactics memoriam, you're in something called downtime. And in downtime, you basically get 3 downtime points, or one per player if you have a larger table. You want to make sure everyone's included. And they let you do positive things to help your party, whether it's finding items or recruiting a new character, having your kind of a bonding moment, your support conversation where two characters get to know one each another and like gain some type of bonus when they fight alongside each other, or saying goodbye to somebody, like you were saying. Parting ways is one of my favorite uh, additions to this system because in your huge strategy games, your Shining Forces, your Fire Emblems, you're going to have units that don't make it to the final party. And then you're going to have 30 people sitting in your barracks not doing anything. Parting ways is supposed to be a way to address that. Once you have uh, hit a certain rank of bond or friendship with them, there's some benefits to parting ways. But at any time, if somebody just maybe their character doesn't really justify them staying within this conflict anymore, or maybe you just kind of keep forgetting that you've recruited them because you've recruited 10 other characters along the way, you can just say goodbye to them. They can leave and they can leave you with an item or one of their skills if you're closely bonded to them. It's a way to not only gain some type of mechanical benefit, but also to marry the story of it all within everything. I feel like it could be pretty meaningful to say goodbye to a character you've been using for a while, but it might also, depending on the story, be nice to let them go. Maybe they avenged their loved one already and they decide to stop off at this little settlement that you've just fought this big battle in and help rebuild it. It's like, okay, they can part ways, they can pass one of their skills along to some inheritor of their will, and you can keep going. It's to help this afterlife feel endless, in addition to giving you those mechanical and organizational benefits.
I really love that that is built in because I think that is something that can be scary for players and for GMs is recognizing when an NPC or even a PC story
Mm-hmm.
is concluded and
Yeah.
accepting that it's retirement time or it's time for them to focus on something else that doesn't circle around the main story. I think a lot of us were traumatized when Ash gave up Butterfree in Pokemon, and I don't think we've ever fully forgiven that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that trauma carries through. But I
Yeah.
love that it absolutely is, with the influences you've talked about, such a built-in core mechanic and so important in RP and so important to story to recognize when it's time to let a character go. So I know a
Yeah.
lot of that is like background for some games. I love that this is in the foreground for this one in particular.
Yeah, because
Uh,
even think about Critical Role when
yeah,
the first season when Sam like had Scanlan just be done with the party for a little while, and then he brought another beloved and fun character to the table. That's not something intrinsic to D&D's rules. That was a player being like, I think it's time. Maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. Let's just add a twist on the formula. Let's add a new character into this found family and see the disaster that it causes. And that can be really fun. So here's some encouragement to do so.
I love that. I love that very much. Okay, so that's the downtime part of it. Let's talk about the the reverse of that downtime, the other side of that coin, which it's in the name, tactics.
Yep.
When it comes to combat, we have the chessboard, we have the chess pieces. What does combat typically look like? You mentioned that the chess pieces don't typically move the way that they would in a game of chess. So where do the tactics come into combat, and what are we kind of looking at for that?
Absolutely. So this is going to be this is going to be the big nerd game designer brain coming out in just a
We're ready,
minute.
go for it. Yeah, it's the
Um,
place for it.
Absolutely. First of all, just want to throw out there that on page 48 and 49, there's a table for determining what's to come, where you can roll for the reason you're fighting at all. Because sometimes you might just find yourself finishing around a downtime and being like, all right, well, we've used all our downtime points. The villain's still all the way over there. What do we do in the meantime? Roll a d8. Somebody needs our help. Or we survive. And then the objective of the combat you can also roll for as well. It's survive a wave of enemies, or defeat the stage boss, or rescue a new character or two from the enemies. And if they survive, they'll join you. You can just roll for that. And then from there, you can even roll dice to see how many of your units you're going to bring to the battle. There's a rule for it on page 49. It's when you have 5 or less playable units, just bring them all. You're getting to know everybody. But when you have 6 playable units, roll a d4 plus 2. When you have 8 or more, roll a d6 plus 2. I think d4 for the last one. So d6 plus 2 when your party's at 8 or more units. So that way, you don't have to worry about managing everybody. But you can have your big battles, you can have your small battles. So you can determine what's to come, whether you're the GM or playing solo. As for the way combat itself works, this is a move and attack game. This is I move my unit, I pick an item from their inventory to swing with, and I swing. That's the core of combat, and everything builds off of that. There's no MP to track. There's no spell slots to track. There's no hope or fear. For the most part, you're just moving and attacking, and everything builds off of that. The way it does so is that every single unit in the game fits into one of 3 types of categories. Your characters are either armors, runners, or riders. Every single one of them. So your armors have the highest base stats, but the lowest move. Your riders, which also include flying units, have the most move, but the lowest stats. And then the runners, your kind of general infantry, are somewhere in the middle. And when I was devising the game originally, I was kind of like, armor, infantry, and cavalry just sounds kind of like hokey, it's been done before. What can we do? So we have the soft rhyme on armor, runner, rider for every single unit. Because not only does that impact how far they move, it also impacts what their weaknesses are. I was kind of thinking about, in a move and attack game, there needs to be some sort of layer of complexity as to like why you're attacking with this unit instead of this other unit that could also attack. So I knew there had to be some type of weakness system. In Fire Emblem, there's the weapon triangle. It's like, oh, if you're using a sword, you don't want to be attacked by someone with a lance. They'll have a higher chance to hit you and they'll do more damage.
Yeah, it's
But
the rock, paper, scissors of it all. Yeah.
exactly. But that's cumbersome in a tabletop game, because then you have to check your enemy's inventory when you attack. And I'm like, that sucks. There needs to be something more simple. So runners, armors, and riders are weak to different damage types. Armors are weak to breaking attacks, your hammers, certain spells, because it breaks the armor. Your runners are weak to slashing attacks, just big, wide arcing blades can catch their less armored bodies. And then your cavalry or rider or flyer units are weak to piercing attacks, which could be anything from like hefty spears, stopping cavaliers in their tracks, to like bows and arrows, shooting flyers down. So it's less about a pure rock, paper, scissors system and more like, all right, I have a limited amount of inventory slots. Let me carry a slashing weapon and a piercing weapon. I can't deal with armors, but I'll have this other guy who can deal with armors. And I'll have this guy also have a shield, which will increase his defense. And everyone's supposed to work in concert, because everyone's going to be weak to something, and everybody can only hit so many different types of damage with limited inventory slots. And then from there, it's moving and attacking, and there's
I think we lost internet for just a second there. So,
Gotcha.
So you're good. Say what you were just saying. We were talking about how like everybody can do one thing well, one thing not so well, which I do want to say real quick is I think really great to divert away from any like power gamers or you
Yeah.
know main character energy, because yeah, on the battle map you do have like, well, I might get surrounded. I need to be strategic about that. So I really love the strategy of it. But please finish what you were saying.
No, that's exactly it. Does that all make sense so far
Yes,
with how the game
absolutely. I think
works?
that's really great. Yeah.
It wasn't too many words at once because sometimes I worry like, God, this has been bouncing around in my head for a
No,
year. But
like you were saying, it's not rock paper scissors, which I think, a lot of people might be tempted to lean into that, but like you said, that feels a little
Mhm.
cumbersome. But it does make you think strategically about how you are going to outfit your force and try to structure them in a way. It has it has the energy again of very much of chess, but with like
Mhm.
extra steps. It's
Yep.
almost like this middle ground of like Stratego, if you ever played that, where like certain forces, again, that's more numerical.
Mhm.
But I really love that you can conceptualize physically where your forces are. It's not theater of the mind, and you can really play out what things are going to look like on the map. I also really like that the illustration in the book details it even further for those of us who might be visual learners. So I think that makes it easy as well. Yeah, so like you were saying, three main types of combatants for the most part. But then there's like extra steps to that as well, because you are leveling up. You do
Mhm.
have levels of enemies, difficulty with enemies. What are kind of the more in-depth parts of combat?
Yeah, yeah. So in order to make the game really quick, all attacks you roll to hit, but you don't roll for damage. The same weapon is going to deal the weapon's might plus your character's stat, period. Because the longer I play TTRPGs, the more tired I am of systems where you have to roll for hit and then for damage. I really love the elegant ones where you just roll once. Fabula
Hmm.
Ultima, I listed as an inspiration at the start of the book, because Fabula Ultima, you roll 2 dice, and their total is the amount to hit, and then the higher of the 2 dice is the damage you deal. You don't have
That's
to
more
roll
elegant.
separately.
Yeah.
It's
I
great.
like that better than like rolling an 18 and then doing like 1 point of damage with a
Yeah,
dagger. It's like, well, I rolled better though. Shouldn't I do better? Yeah, I agree with you.
exactly. So damage is fixed and it has to be quick. If you're rolling for hit and damage and you have like 10 units in every battle, it's going to take a while. So the only time you ever roll is to hit, and critical hits only happen um, when you're rolling with advantage, because in order for critical hits to happen, you need dice to match. That's kind of where weaknesses come in. If you're attacking an armor with a breaking weapon, you can roll 2 dice. So you get a higher chance to hit and deal your fixed damage, or if the 2 dice match, you get a critical hit. Um, it's all supposed to be really fast. That was faster than, attacking a weakness leading to extra damage. It's like attacking a weakness gives
Yeah.
you an advantage die, you'll most likely hit, and you get a chance to critical. Like, it's supposed to be quick. And then you can stack sources of advantage, like if you're attacking enemy that's pincered between two of your units, or if you're invoking a once per battle bond with another character that you might have like found during downtime. You can add an advantage die as well. So the real min-maxing part of this game is stacking every source of advantage so that you're rolling 5 d10s at once and then looking for just one pair to get a critical hit. That's kind of what the battles look like as the game goes on. Um, and the one other aspect to it that I'm really excited about is there's a fighting game super meter in this game. There's going to be a number that either increases or ticks down depending on how you're tracking it. If you have like a dice thrown like little HP wheel, you can maybe start it at the number and then tick it down little by little. Or if you have like dice in front of you, you can like start with a D12 and like tick it up. You're always going to have a number during combat that equals 3 times the amount of units you brought to fight. And every time you do something, the meter fills a little bit. Certain actions fill the meter a little bit more. And once the meter is full, you get to do a super cool super attack, where you roll a number of d10s equal to the units you brought to the battle, whether they're alive or dead, to kind of signify that either everyone is attacking together or everyone is healing together, because you can also direct it to heal, or just show that, like, maybe this one character has everybody's hopes and dreams resting on this one strike, and boom. So I felt like a move and attack game would get kind of stale eventually if there weren't bells and whistles to keep it going. So here's something that is always encouraging you to move forward and act. Because even if it feels like your attacks aren't dealing enough damage, you can build up this little super meter, this deathly technique as it's called in the game, and just wham, get a big hit off. It adds more interesting pacing to the interval of combat.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm seeing that you've got, I mean, a number of things. So you're talking about the attacking mechanic of it. I'm seeing there's also healing that can be brought into it as well. So there, it seems like magic light is that accurate, or is like that maybe magic isn't at the foreground of combat.
Yeah, exactly. The foreground of combat is whatever's in your inventory.
Okay.
It's your sword, or if you do have a mage, like, your spell, but your spell isn't going to be like you have a wizard spell book with 20 different things. It's
Hmm.
like I have a spell called Gravel's Rage. It hits from 1 to 2 range. It grants advantage when attacking flying units. They are treated like spells are treated like inventory items in the same way that weapons are in this game. Because it's more about how you outfit your units, how they work together, and how quickly you can get to unleashing this super move, basically.
Yeah, I really I love the concept of the super move. So when it comes to battle preparation, is
Mhm.
this something where you would have the players set up their army not knowing what they're going up against and just trying to have like what they would consider the most strategic sort of loadout? Or is this something of, okay, this is the army we're going up against, we're going to take these weapons, these characters, kind of with that?
I think the latter is more rewarding.
Yeah.
I think because it allows your players to figure out what they need and whose strengths would be more appropriate, especially if you take the downtime action to recruit enough units and you end up with like 10 different people for different purposes. I think that's the satisfying thing about these strategy games. It's like, oh, there's no armor units in this next battle, so we don't need the guy with the big hammer. Like let's bring this quick person with a knife because they haven't really had a chance to shine recently. Though there are mechanics on the roll tables that might say, oh, you do a bunch of battles without downtime, or oh, you do a bunch of battles where you don't get to do that prep beforehand. But I think those are the exception for the sake of pacing rather than the general rule, because I'd rather players let that planning be part of their strategy as well.
Okay. I love that there are essentially levels into combat as well that you could be facing off against forces of equivalent number and skill, perhaps, or perhaps overwhelming number and skill. I think that that builds a level of probably due stress to a tactics game. Um, this definitely feels like a game where in like some TTRPGs, you will have the, well, you can always run away. Is it doesn't seem like maybe so much for this one that the battles are kind of staged for the progression of the story, and that it is probably best to not have no win scenarios, maybe difficult scenarios, or maybe scenarios where your character will, like you were saying, Hades, like wake up in a pool of blood, like, ah, dang, but perhaps not like keep coming up against these unbeatable sort of battles. Is that maybe a fair assessment?
Yeah, because in a video game, that's not fun, you
For
know?
sure, yeah.
Like there's a section for resolving defeat at the end of the book where it's like, you want to ask yourself, who was it that defeated you, what were the consequences, and what comes next. And it
Yeah.
encourages you to, in this aspect, not treat it like a video game. Like you can figure out what the consequences of your failure were for the larger story, but I don't think unwinnable battles really add as much value to this game specifically. And I think I would encourage people trying the game to maybe consider like following the rules for creating an escape map rather than creating an unwinnable battle. It's like try to get all of your units to these two tiles at the other end of the board, and whoever gets there escapes, and then everybody else is captured, and then you resolve that in the story. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I also I do want to kind of celebrate you for this. You've a number of times given an answer that is essentially like, I just want to do what's the most fun. I really appreciate that for
Yeah.
somebody that is creating a game. That I love that that is at the forefront of your mind when it comes to like actual gameplay. Is as someone who has played a game, who has run games before, that fun is the central aspect. I think that some people when they write or create, that maybe falls by the wayside of, I just want to make mechanics that are just like interesting and like different and balanced, but that fun is for the player and the GM is at the
Yeah.
forefront is something that's really great. So I really appreciate that.
It's got to be
Uh,
there. We're playing games.
it has to, yeah, it is a game ultimately. Yeah, I think that's, again, I don't think that's always remembered. I'm glad that that's remembered here. Um, I know you mentioned that advantage and disadvantage were part of this. Are there any other mechanics that people might be like familiar with from other TTRPGs, or any others that we haven't mentioned that stand out as unique?
Advantage is kind of the main one. I want that complexity added to a move and attack game of you pay attention to who you're attacking and why. It's like I'm attacking this enemy because they are pincered between two of my other units, and I am attacking with a weapon they're weak to, so I'm rolling 3d10s to potentially hit and crit. That is going to be the layer of strategy to it all. Figuring out who to attack, why they're attacking, etc. As for mechanics that feel new, I say feel new rather than are new, because I feel like there's just an infinite mass of tabletop games out there. There is one additional aspect of the move and attack formula that adds another layer of complexity to it all, which is something called the unison strike. Within the flavor of the world, it is your soul and your body are moving as one to deal an extra hit. And it is the only way to do a kind of double attack in this game. In Fire Emblem, if your speed is over your enemies by a certain amount, you get to do 2 attacks, and it's something that the entire core gameplay revolves off of, because you're basically dealing twice the damage. There's no speed stat in this game. There's just a movement stat. So instead, I had something called the Unison Strike. It's where if your number on the D10 equals your character's level, they can attack again, whether they hit or miss. Which isn't something I have seen in other TTRPGs. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But the idea of it is that your die matches your level, your body matches your soul in this moment, and it lets you do a cool little like attack again because you are just moving so perfectly in this moment. The idea of it is not that it's a flat benefit like a critical hit, which is just more damage. At lower levels, it has the bonus of, oh, you rolled a 1? Well, you get another chance. Whereas as the game goes on, it's going to be more about, oh, I already hit, here's my chance to hit again. Early levels, Unison Strike kind of acts as a do-over, whereas later levels, Unison Strike acts as following momentum. And it's random for the most part. Your die needs to match your level, but there are mechanics in the game invoking these bonds in battle that I mentioned before. One of the benefits to bonding units out of combat during downtime in the Fire Emblem Support Conversation inspired system is that depending on the strength of your bond with another ally in combat, you can shift the value of your dice a little bit. So if you have a bond of 3, you can shift your dice up to 3, which is a mechanic inspired by Dice Throne, the kind of like versus board game. So you can make your dice match to get a critical hit, or you could like shift your die to match your level so you get an extra attack. So that is another aspect to the combat of it all. So I think
It's really cool.
I've thrown a lot of words at you, Derek, but the
No,
basic...
no, I'm following along. The one
Oh,
thing
yeah.
that I'm kind of seeing is that this concept of synchronicity, the balance. You know, again, this is a game of separation of body and soul, but when those two things align, or when even the dice and respective, you know, portion of the character sheet align, that is the most beneficial. I think that's a really cool kind of like flow through for it is yes, when you can find that that point of balance, that point of synchronicity, that is when things are most optimal for you. I think that's a really, really cool thing that like isn't just in one part. It seems to be in many parts.
Yeah, and it's all on top of the move and attack formula. You know, like 20
Yeah.
minutes ago, I was like, this is a game where you move and attack. And now I've hit you with like the five other things that happen in regards to that. You want to look for enemy weaknesses, you want to look for other cases of advantage, you want to look for critical hits, you want to look for that magic number on the die that grants you the unison strike, and you're letting your fighting game super meter fill. So that's to make sure combat doesn't get stale. So it's not just a move and attack game.
Yeah.
There's all these other things that you are looking out for because they will change the course of how your turn goes. There is one other thing that is kind of important relative to how other strategy games work that I want to mention. Um,
Please.
I was noodling for so long on whether I wanted turns in this game to work like chess, where it's like you move one unit and then the enemy moves one unit and you just take turns. And then I was kind of like, that kind of like might lead to situations where you just send one guy to do one thing by themselves, and that's not what I
Sure.
want for a cooperative game. And then I thought about like the Fire Emblem, like all your units move and then all the enemy units move. And that kind of seemed a little bit more in line with the teamwork aspect of the story, but I think it ran the risk of some turns taking too long because I really wanted to avoid the like glaze over when your enemies are taking their enormous turn situation. And what I eventually landed on was a system where 3 units can move every turn and 2 units can act every turn, no matter how big the battle is. So there's no D&D initiative order or anything like that. It's just
Mhm.
every turn, 3 units can move, 2 units can act. 3 of your units can maybe get into position to get a pincer attack going and then hit it from 2 different angles. Or maybe 2 units go and attack while the third one who's wounded retreats. So it almost feels like you're looking at a diagram of a football game with like where the X's and O's are going to go.
Right.
The idea being even if you're at a table with multiple people, nobody's only focusing on what their character is doing. Everybody's kind of moving together. We have to figure out, okay, if Derek goes here and Ava goes here, then Sylvia can go in from the front and do this. And like that's what I want the turns to feel like. I want it to be cooperative and feel like teamwork rather than just everybody worrying about their favorite character, which is well, an important thing for how the game works. But I feel like that is kind of the final thing I wanted to throw in there because it ties back to the philosophy of the system, the teamwork as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, the full the big picture of troop movements, or not the, oh man, that undoes what I was gonna do. Yeah, the
Yeah.
conversation of it, I think is great. This is actually something I meant to ask. When it comes to the table size, you
Mhm.
mentioned this could be played solo or this could be played with multiple people. When we say solo, is that just one person or is it one person in a GM? And then when it comes to table size, what is like what would you consider like optimal table size for a game like this if it wasn't
Mhm.
being played solo?
Yeah, I think 3 players is great.
Okay.
Because that means that let's say your party eventually expands to having around 10 units you're swapping in and out of battle depending on the situation, then everybody really only needs to worry about like 3-ish units that they control at the same time. The game is designed to be flexible. Um, this game could be played with a GM and one person, and I'm kind of
Hmm.
thinking before the end of the month I might try to fit one of those showcases in there. Um, but I think what's important is that mechanically battles are kind of designed to work best with about 5 units. Um, and it's not strictly adhered to that because conflict can have different scales, but it's going to be up to the table as to how they want to organize it. You know, if your player is like, I'm a little overwhelmed controlling more than one unit at a time, then maybe you can entrust it to the 2 other people at the table that are like, okay, we'll each take 2, and then you can only worry about your character. It's a bit of a non-answer, but I think what's more important to me was creating a system where you don't have to worry about wrangling that last friend or it's not going to work. This
Man,
game could be played just with an enthusiastic GM who wants to show the system to somebody, me, and their one friend that they roped into it.
I think it's a great answer. That's perfect. Okay, we've talked a lot about the heroes, the protagonists. I want to touch real quick on the antagonists because we've kind of
Mhm.
danced around them a little bit, and we're going to get to, I think, one of the toughest questions I'm going to throw at you because you do
Yeah.
have some really interesting antagonist archetypes here. I'm seeing that at least in the beta test there are four primary
Mhm.
options from reading those.
Yep.
One of the hardest questions I'm going to ask you, and I'll ask you another one here in a little bit, but do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite child when it comes to these antagonists?
I do. And it's
Okay.
number four, the hero of another story.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Okay.
there are four different antagonists that you can either roll for or pick your favorite, depending on the story you're trying to tell. And I think the first three are kind of archetypal. You have the
Hmm.
champion, who's kind of the invincible warrior who maybe you do an escape map against because you're not strong enough to fight them yet. You have the fox, who's kind of the trickster, the brains over brawn type, who might be manipulating everything. You have the angel, who just seemed like great for an afterlife setting, for everybody to, reckon with their Catholic guilt. Here's a divine individual who's like, we just need to wipe the slate clean. But then number four is the hero of another story. They're always growing in power. They are a survivor. They are just like you. There's just some aspect of circumstance that pitted them against you instead. And there's a few suggestions as to how to run them. Um, and this antagonist is going to be, especially in the beta version, before we get to the 8 Tyrants of Memoria, is going to be the fixture of your campaign. They're going to be the person who stands in the way of your salvation in one way or another. And because I'm a maniac, about 2 days before sending the final version to Danielle to deal with the layout, I also I wrote up some antagonist only skills in the book as well, just so that you're not fighting like, oh, another armored unit with a spear is my big final battle, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, for these four archetypes, and there will be more archetypes in the final game, all with their own antagonist exclusive skills. Um, I introduced some aspect of flavor for them. Uh, this is on page 90 and 91. But for the champion, after you get them down to half HP, they heal up to full and they get an extra movement and action every turn. You know, it's like they get their big second wind. For the fox, the trickster, they have two very powerful items in their inventory slot, including one that allows them to teleport 3 squares away every time they get damage, which really messes with your strategy of trying to pincer and surround people when they can just teleport away.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
the angel heals every time someone is defeated, and then when they get below half HP, they can revive every enemy in battle with 1 HP to start their healing process again. Um, and then finally, this is one of the reasons the hero of another story is one of my favorites. Um, I had their antagonist exclusive skill be called the heart of a hero. It's after they are brought to 0 HP, they basically hang on for 5 turns and continue fighting, unable to take damage. Because this is a hero. This is the protagonist of their own adventure. They are going to believe in themselves. They're going to believe in their ideals, and they're going to fight you. And if you have a certain item in your inventory called Power Through Change, which is one of the items that lets your units ascend or promote classes, um, then after these 5 turns are up, you can use that item on the hero of another story to get them to join your cause. And then for the final version of the game, they would be a new ally to help change the shape of Memoriam and fight the tyrants. But if you don't have that item, or you decide you just don't like this person, they just drop dead. After that,
Great.
their
That's
ideals
great.
ran out. Those are the antagonists that you will be facing in your campaign and potentially recruiting in one case.
Okay. That's really really cool. I would scroll past that one. The fox had caught my eye. I really liked the idea of cunning antagonist and especially the inventory aspect that you were mentioning before. But I absolutely agree with you now. The hero of another story being this other side of the coin to
Yep,
your protagonist. They want it just as bad. Why does it have to be you, not them? And perhaps the tragedy of, well, they're kind of a jerk. Let's put them down. I
exactly.
or yeah, or allying them. Again, I really respect and appreciate the inherent story like building blocks that have been put into Tactics Memoriam, having the downtime activities of making friends and also saying goodbye, of turning enemies into friends, of having these antagonists kind of like nipping at your heels the entire time that you're trying to progress. You have taken a what otherwise would be a tabletop war game and have put so much more into it. I think that's really, really cool and a
Thank you.
great setting for it as well. No, thank you. um I'm gonna delve into kind of tangential off of the fox here when it comes
Mhm.
to items. You have a wonderful list of weapons and items and things that heroes can come across and add and kind of sort through their particular group. Do you have a favorite when it comes to that? You've also got some really great names here as well. So
Thank
as I was
you.
scrolling through, but are there any that you think are like, yes, if I was gonna put this on a business card, it'd be this item?
Yeah, so my favorite is oh goodness, I'm forgetting its name. But I'll lead an interlude while I scroll to the page where it happens.
Yeah.
There is weather in Tactics Memoriam.
Hmm.
Right now, there's two weather conditions in the game because I feel like that's just such an underutilized aspect of things like D&D. It's like if there's
Hmm.
a sandstorm, something should be happening mechanically. So I have two items that can change the weather. Uh, that maybe your characters might want to bring to battle with them. The Essence of Flood changes the weather condition to a rainstorm, which basically reduces the movement of flying and runner units. Armored units are so heavy and helmeted that they're not affected. But if you see a map of all flying units, you're like, cool, we're going to bring all our armor guys and we're going to bring our Essence of Flood. We're going to change the weather. And they lost their whole advantage of all that extra movement. Um, the other weather condition was one that I kind of localized to this strange afterlife setting. It's a weather condition called Soul Cage, which sounds very extra, but it ties into the chessboard aspect of it.
Yeah.
By using the Essence of Imprisonment, or if a weather condition randomly appears if you roll for one, the weather condition changes to something called Soul Cage, where the board wraps around itself. It's like you could exit one side of the board and then appear on the other. And that's one of the aspects to the chessboard that I wanted. I wanted this small battlefield to feel unique in some way. So here's a weather condition where, oh, if you need to capture an objective tile on the other side of the map, but there's a wall of armors in front of it, maybe one of your units uses their action this turn to activate the soul cage, and then one of your units just exits one side of the map and like teleports to the other and then wins the map instantly. I think these weather conditions were designed to completely change the way that a battle map works to the point that they would feel valuable as an item in that way. You are literally changing reality by invoking these items in this ethereal afterlife. So I like those a lot.
I love that. I agree with you. I think that weather is an incredibly underutilized concept when it comes to any sort of tabletop game. It's kind of hinted at here and there. I know there's a few pages, whether it's in the DMG or one of the extra books that talks about like, yeah, well, weather, right? Like difficult terrain, and then they hand wave. But very much to your point, like you have different types of troops, different types of movement. You are talking about troop combat, and weather would absolutely come into it. Like there's been major historical battles that have been decided based on whether there was mud and whether it rained the night before. That's there's a famous battle in the Hundred Years' War that I can't remember right now, but that was like the French and the English. The French brought a bunch of heavy cavalry, and then they all fell into the mud, and then a bunch of peasant archers just walked up to them and killed all of these, like killed and then captured and ransomed all of these like super wealthy knights because of mud. So yeah, when it comes to weather, that's an absolutely important thing. I love that you included that. Um, I wanted to. I don't think Waterloo's not the one I'm thinking of, but there is another one. There's a question from Sylvia in chat, and I did want to address this. So you talk a lot about games or genre that inspired aspects of Tactics Memoriam. Are there any games or genres that you didn't want Tactics Memoriam to be like? Anything that you were really trying to divert away from or
Mhm.
create distance from?
Yeah, so story-wise, I didn't want it to feel like ultra-violent fantasy. This is not a story of you are going through hell to decapitate this person with their spinal cord or something like that. I wanted it to feel more melancholic and reflective because you're not the coolest person in the world. You're somebody who did not live up to their aspirations in life. From a mechanical perspective, like a lot of indie designers, I think a lot of the design here was inspired by some of the things that had worn me down about D&D.
Hmm.
Um, like I was saying before, rolling to hit and then rolling to attack, it feels so cumbersome after a certain point when you're at like a table of six new players and like you as the veteran are like, oh, I roll all my hit dice and damage dice at the same time, so I know instantly. But then you see everybody else learn that because it's not intrinsic to the game at all. I wanted roleplay to have those downtime points to feel a little bit more mechanical and not just the GM decides everything. I wanted there to be that level of guidance that I think is not always present in strategy games that are so focused on detailing how the classes work. I wanted to make sure that everything else around it was filled in.
I think that's wonderful. A fantastic answer. Thank you, Sylvia, for the question. Um, Yeah, it is such an incredibly, and again, just looking at the beta version, incredibly flushed out system with a rule set I've not seen before. I don't think I have played a TTRPG that incorporates chessboard or chess pieces into it. And for you to streamline to make combat that is has a lot of moving parts, but also moves quickly because the moving parts are optimized, I think is something that it really needs to be shouted out. Um, I love the concept behind the setting and the protagonist antagonist concept. The fact that you have bosses built in. It feels like a game that could be played a billion different ways, a billion different times over, and really create this beautiful story on top of it because it isn't all just combat. I'm very excited to see the final product, but so far, I mean, incredible as is. Uh, I think this is probably as good a time as any. I would love to make a character for Tactics Memoriam. So I would appreciate some walking through with
Of
this.
course.
So I do have the character sheet
Mhm.
pulled up. The template for the character sheet. What page am I looking at for in the book itself?
Yeah, I'll walk you through it. Do you have your dice in front of you?
I certainly can. Yes. Yeah,
Amazing, because
we're all good
I might have you hit a few random tables.
for sure.
Um,
Let's do it.
let's start with the aspect of story. Let's start with your hero. Can you roll a
Okay,
d4 for me?
I sure can.
Mhm.
Let's see. Use a digital roller because I'm not sure if
Yep.
exactly where my dice are. Okay, I have
All
I have
good.
a one on the D4.
Amazing. So you are the chosen savior. A close ally,
Okay.
perhaps a family member or dear friend, used the last of their strength to bring you to a river of souls. They lost their life in the process. Honoring their last wish, you did the unthinkable and drank of its life and infinite memory. You now have the power to defy death and change this grim place through force. When struck down, the solar souls within you cushion the burden, returning you to consciousness after healing and rest. Through your energy, you cannot die permanently, but their ceaseless voices speak to you as you sleep. Are they voices of guidance or reassurance, or screams to be freed from your vessel? That's the story of your character a little bit.
Incredible and terrifying. Wonderful.
Can,
Okay,
can
go
you
for it,
roll a
please. Yeah,
d4 for me again? I want to see who
for
stands in your
sure.
way.
Let's find out. That is a 3.
A 3. The angel. Purgatory is not punishment enough for sinners. This place must be wiped clean. The angel to some might have good intentions. They wish to rid the afterlife of evil, but with every soul capable of large and small evils, the angel has resigned to an act of mass purification. They may have done this before. And then it says what a campaign featuring the angel will be. So you
Mm-hmm.
are You are somebody who's kind of acting as the inherited will of somebody who died, trying to stop somebody looking to wipe this place clean.
Great.
Let's now, on your digital roller, do you have the ability to set the parameters, like to do a 1 to 60, or would you like me to roll
Oh
something?
yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
Cool. Can you give me a 1 to 60 roll for your character traits?
sure. 22.
All right, so this is the identity table on pages 34 and 35.
Okay.
Every time you encounter a character, you're not just coming up with their class, you're seeing what they're all about.
Yeah.
You said it was a 22?
22.
Okay. 22, 99 years of battle under their belt. What could possibly go wrong? So
I
you're a
love
little
that.
you're a little bit experienced, but maybe everybody's kind of waiting for you to kick the bucket. I think
Yeah,
that's
the passive aggressive question hits really well on that one. I love the religious trauma of angels being the protagonist as well. This is going great so far.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so all right,
Let's let's give them another trait. Can you
sure.
roll 0 to 60 again? Because it's not
Yeah,
just these traits, but the combinations of them that I think will make the characters unique.
yeah. That is a 39. So
Okay,
yeah, entrusted with a loved one's dream.
easy enough. That's also implied
Okay.
by the backstory. So you really
Yeah,
want to make it to see those 100 years of battle for sure.
just 1 year to go. 1 year to retirement. All right.
um, do you want to roll me a 0 to 60 and see what their name might be? There is a table
Let's
of
see.
names if you don't want to pull one out of the ether.
Yeah, let's see. That is an 18. So Paloma.
Paloma. All right. So we
All
have
right.
Paloma, the character with 99 years of battles under their belt, entrusted with the loved one's dream, trying to stop an angel from destroying this place.
It's a really good
Um,
name list. I don't think I mentioned that before. The lists in this are very good. There's some
Thank
good stuff.
you.
Even if you don't want to roll on it, you could just look and be like, yeah, actually, like Rhyme is a really great protagonist name. That one's really great.
Yeah,
Okay,
because I want these to not just symbolize your protagonist, but if you choose the finding friends downtime action, you're like, we only have 4 people, we could use a fifth. Let's see who shows up.
yeah,
It's Cressida the Archer. Boom, already a character is there, and they're the sharpest person in a room, a fact in which they're well aware. Um, why don't we decide what class Paloma is? Can you roll a d8 for me? 1 to
let's do
8.
that. Yeah, there's a 5.
So Paloma is a war mage. A war mage is
Okay.
an armored magic user. So I think that's interesting. I think that experience has led them to be very practical. There's one more role that I'm going to have you do, which is to decide your personal skill. Every unit has a
Okay.
class skill. So for example, the war mage gets an extra advantage die when they are making an attack while adjacent to somebody else.
Mhm.
The idea being they are taking advantage of the chaos of the battlefield. They love to be grouped up with their allies. Can you roll a d20 for me, or a 1 to 20 roll to see what the personal skill is that helps define Paloma from other war mages?
For sure. I think more mages should wear armor. I think all wizards should wear armor. I think it's a bad idea that they don't.
Yeah,
That
right?
is a lucky 13.
Lucky, lucky 13. Okay. Interesting. So this is on pages 88 and 89 for personal skills.
Okay.
Paloma got the big-hearted skill.
Oh.
Um, she or they can invoke their bonds up to 2 times per battle. So I mentioned before that, you can invoke your bond with an ally present if you've had your little bonding time, your support conversation with them to grant them an advantage die or like shift the value of the die on their attack. Paloma
Hmm.
can do it twice per battle, which means that they're very teamwork oriented. And also, we talked a little bit about the fighting game super meter. One of the things that helps fill it up is invoking your bonds. So with Paloma, the aspect of teamwork is also going to be mechanized in that by invoking these bonds, they're going to get everybody to do the big, cool group attack faster. So we have our protagonists. They seem very teamwork oriented. Maybe they have a lot of survivor's guilt, and they are an imperfect person trying to stop somebody from wiping the whole place out. And you're good to go. There's
Perfect.
an
Yeah.
aspect of deciding your inventory as well, but we don't really need to worry too deeply about that. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work, and this character has a lot to do with dreams. So I think that's a perfect fit. I love how random tables often do much to the point we were making before, have that synchronicity of like, well, let's just see what comes out, and then you get this fully fleshed character. You're like, oh, it's my personal trauma in character form, and it's like just so happened to be my exact horoscope. This is great. Um, Very smooth, very easy. That and yeah, and now I have a character and could come up with probably three more in the next like 3 minutes.
And then start the
Um,
campaign from there. You have your
yeah,
squad, see who else they recruit, see who perishes along the way, and see what happens.
yes, yeah, absolutely. See who we let go. See who's going to be, who's going to really fit the company vibe. Um, Julie, that was absolutely incredible to see how smooth that all went, how streamlined that all is. And again, you have the character sheet, like the Google spreadsheet, that is available, as you mentioned, to make it even more streamlined. So that's really great. Um, Tactics Memoriam seems like an absolutely incredible game. I know that again we mentioned Rule D5 had done a feature of it recently, so I highly recommend checking out that stream. I believe that was like this past week, right? That was very recent.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was it was earlier this week, I believe on Wednesday or Thursday.
yeah. So should be
Busy month.
available. Yeah, should be available on Roll D5's VODs right now. Highly recommend checking out their channel in general for great features of TTRPGs that aren't the mainstream ones that you see all the time, because I think it is important to celebrate the ones that are incredible on their own merit, not just based off of mass popularity and advertising. And we need to see more of those games. So highly recommend checking that out. Is there anything else that I might have missed in Tactics Memoriam? Anything else that you might think is important to mention in our conversation?
I think the most important thing for me right now, besides trying to get the game into a fully made book with the Kickstarter, is that what I want more than anything else is for people in the world to be devising the most nefarious character builds of all time. In my perfect universe, within a matter of months, I'm going to see people being like, "Oh, if I give a war mage this skill and this item, they're gonna like be really broken in this type of situation." That would make me really happy. So I'm here to remind you that you can play Tactics Memoriam right now. We are funding the Kickstarter for the full game, but you can do what Derek did literally right now, literally with your friends, and just get your campaign started. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate all the support that's been received so far, and it is my goal for the rest of this month, once we hit our goal especially, that the rest of my energy is going to be dedicated towards showing how easy it is to get this game started and reminding you that you can get started for free. The download is free.
Incredible. Okay, so you're looking for game breakers. That's what I'm hearing. I respect that. I respect somebody that's like, listen, I'm looking for the cracks that I can't see. I need somebody to bring this whole building down, so I can build it back up better. Yeah, I mean, having read through it, I think it's great. I think this is a really really cool game. I think it's a great setting. Um, it has inspired me in ways that I always really appreciate new games like this can do. It even has brought up in the back of my mind other games. I'm like, I would love this, but the setting for it, or the mechanics for it, I don't want another D&D game. It could
Yeah.
probably be D&D, but that just wouldn't be what I'm really looking for. And I think that Tactics Memoriam might be scratching that itch, which I think is really great. So, thank you so much for bringing
Uh,
Tactics Memoriam to Sword and Tea. Thank you for sharing this game. Tactics Memoriam is available right now on Kickstarter. As mentioned, there is the downloads that you can get to start your own game right now. However, to get the game in full, definitely check out it's under Tactics Memoriam, so it's kickstarter.com/projects, all that. Type in Tactics Memoriam. Spell Memoriam RIAM. I always want to put a U. That's my spelling bullshit. So spell with an IAM. Um, and yeah, it looks like you are so close to hitting that goal. 30 backers, and it just went up. 31 backers, 23 days to go. Don't wait. Those 23 days are going to go fast. If you don't do it right now, you will forget. I'm sorry. We have to have this conversation. I am you. You are me. We are the same, and we will forget if we don't back it now. So do yourself a favor. back this project, get yourself a copy of Tactics Memoriam, and while you're at it, go ahead and get the stuff that you can download right now as well. The artwork is incredible, the gameplay is incredible, and this game has been written with passion and love that I think is clear on every single page, and some really great tables. I am a firm lover of tables, especially when it comes to new games, because I don't have to pick this one out. I can just roll on this. It's great. Um, Julie, where can we find more of yourself? Anything else that you do?
Yeah, I personally mostly use Blue Sky for my social media. I'm there as Julie Ciel, Juliciel. I stream on Twitch occasionally, and I stream on Roll5 occasionally. Much of my time has been dedicated to this game, but if you want to see my musings about life, art, the world, etc., it is mostly going to be on there.
Wonderful. Go check out Julie's socials and again check out Tactics Memoriam. This has been Sword and Tea. I have been graced as always by another wonderful person in the TTRPG community, especially Grace this time. Thanks to Julie. This conversation has been absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate you and your time. For more Sword and Tea stuff, we will have more streams in the near future, but you can always find all of Sword and Tea and Sword and Keys streams on twitch.tv/sword_and_key. You can also see all of our streams that aren't currently VODs, the older stuff, on YouTube, youtube.com/@swordandkey, all one word. You can find all those links at beacons.ai/sword and key. I would know. I'm Derek Sword, as you hear in pronouns. I'm the sword half of Sword and Key. Check out the beacons for all of our links. We have our socials at the top. That's Blue Sky and Instagram. We also have our Discord. We currently have a game casting call open for Monster Hearts 2. It is a Summer in Carcosa, which is a Lovecraft reference, if you're not familiar with that. A King in Yellow reference, I believe. Which is not originally Lovecraft, fun fact. Anyway, you can check out that game application and submit your name to that casting call. I believe that the application does close on Friday, this coming Friday. So, again, in the essence of not waiting for things, if you've ever wanted to play Monster Hearts 2, especially on Sword and Key, go ahead and apply now. We would love to have you on the channel. I should also mention that game is going to be run by Angela, Phoenix 24 Fem. Great GM, has done some really great stuff on Sword and Key, as well as some other channels, so you can always check out their stuff. For more stuff on the beacons, you can see some of our charitable organizations as you scroll down. We have some evergreen ones like Canine Campaigns for Independence and Palestine Children's Relief Fund, if you're looking to use some of your money towards great cause. We also have some pallies for some of our independent games if you're looking to tip our cast and crew for some of our games and also spice up some of our games. We also, on Beacons, have links to our affiliates. We have a number of fantastic affiliates and even some discount codes. So if you're going to be purchasing from Eldritch Foundry, they make custom minis, no matter how weird and wild, normal and mild your TTRPG character might be, you can use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase. If you're getting yourself a new dice set, which it's always a good time to get a new dice set. I mean, there's never a bad time to get a new dice set. You should check out Long Dog Dice. Jen from Long Dog Dice has been a wonderful friend and affiliate partner, has been wonderful enough to make official Sword and Key dice. They actually have the Sword and Key logo on the D6. You can even get the Long Dog Dice Dachshund logo on the D20. Those are the Horizons Call dice. They are a vibrant shade of blue with little flakes of copper in them. Jen has also recently added a number of incredible dice sets to the store. So if you're looking for your perfect set of dice, it's probably there already. If something's really close but not absolutely perfect, Jen does have a form to submit for custom dice sets. They are essentially the exact same price you would be paying for a normal dice set, and Jen is very skilled in making exactly what you're looking for. So do yourself a favor, use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase at Long Dog Dice. We are also affiliates with Hit Point Press, the makers of Humblewood and animated spell cards and Griffin Saddleback books, and I could probably spend an hour just listing all the things that they make. Use our affiliate link if you're going to be purchasing anything from them. For additional things on the beacons, you can see links to Again, the YouTube, the Twitch. We also have links to Monster Crush, the podcast that is part of the Sword and Key Network. It's a podcast about cryptids, creatures, miscellaneous monsters from myth and how smoochable they are. If you love monsters or really love monsters, you should check it out wherever podcasts are found. It's a podcast I record with my friend LD. However, our first episode is coming, first episode back after our summer break, I should say, is coming back soon. And LD is still a little busy, which is totally okay. I will be joined by a very special guest who I believe is in chat. So I'll go ahead and just shout her out. I'll be joined by Shadow or Sylvia for our first episode back. I'm not going to say what we're talking about just yet, but I'm very much looking forward to that. So to that point, let's take a look at the calendar real quick. Our calendar is always available with events in our Discord. We also have our Google Calendar, which is available on our Discord as well. If you want to be that neurotic about it, I support you if you are. Today is the 7th. If you didn't catch it earlier, we had part 2 of You're in Space and Everything's Fucked with Anik and Michael, a game where Michael has actively said it is, this stream is specifically so Anik can step on his neck and he will thank them for it. So if you didn't catch that, part 2 was earlier today, part 1 was last week. The VODs are available. Next up on our calendar, on Tuesday the 9th at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we have the next episode of Gate Night. It's where Shadow LD and I play Baldur's Gate 3, currently the only video game streamed here on Sword and Key. The rest of the week is a little quiet. Horizon's Call will be taking the week off, so enjoy your Saturday. We will see you back a week from today on the 14th for a number of things. First of all, that is the return of Monster Crush, so we'll have our next episode out then. At 10 a.m. Pacific time, I will be doing a birthday stream for myself because it's close enough to my birthday, not exactly on. We'll be playing a puppy roll game. It is a 5e game using the puppy roll setting, which is free through Hit Point Press right now as a PDF. It was created for, I can't remember which con a couple of years ago, but we're playing as our pets. So I will be joined by a fantastic cast as we are playing our dogs and then one cat. After that, at 3 p.m. Pacific time, we have a pre-recorded episode of Sword and Tea, where I will be chatting with Megan Lynn about her new game, Homecoming. So you can check that out. Questions for that are probably best addressed in our Discord as opposed to live, considering it is pre-recorded. After that, that next week is a little, we're getting into some stuff. We have some real life stuff coming up, including one of our players and a dear friend, Kayla's wedding coming up next month, and it's a busy time of year. So the calendar is going to get a little wonky. I promise more stuff is coming soon. The next thing I should note on the 19th, this is going to be an all day thing. We have movie nights we do on our Discord. They're totally free. All you gotta do is just be around, be part of it. Typically, we do them at 6 p.m. Pacific time at night on Fridays. This won't be an all-day event because, again, for the general concept around my birthday, we'll be doing an all-day stream, 12-hour stream of the Lord of the Rings extended edition movies all back to back. So I'll be at work. Eva's wonderful enough to run the projector on that one. But if you also will be at work that day or not, and you want to keep your phone or laptop nearby, Lord of the Rings will be playing. Just throwing it out there. We have more stuff after that. On the 20th, we have more Sword and Teas, Horizon's Call back, more and more things. I'll talk about more of that as we get closer to it, but keep an eye on the calendar and keep an eye on the events. We'll always try to keep you as updated as possible. All that said, tonight we're going to be rating Vault Companions. They are doing a Hades TTRPG, perhaps topically to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So until we see you next time, hopefully sooner rather than later, please take care of yourselves, take care of others, and we'll see you next time for the next Sword and Tea.